What's up, people? It's me, Inscription. We're here to go over some thoughts I've been having about the Resident Evil remakes. Now, Resident Evil is one of my favorite franchises. Personally, I think Resident Evil 4 is my game of the year so far this year. I know Baldur's Gate has the ability to select one of 5 penises. However, I really do think the game of the year for me is Resident Evil 4. I love the gameplay. It's completely visceral. It's completely brutal. And so far, nothing's topped that for me yet. So what I wanted to go over today was, just a little bit of the remakes and what I think they should do moving forward with the remakes. I really think that they kind of went in a weird direction by remaking 2 before the first one. So like they've got it to like an arc where it's kind of following Leon, right? I mean, it's like following Leon and what happened in Raccoon City from Leon's perspective, and yeah, Jill obviously as well. It's kind of a shame though, because they've introduced the new remake Jill during Remake 3, and it's like she has a huge backstory from Resident Evil 1, and I think that, whereas Leon didn't, right? Leon, like, you're introduced to him in Resident Evil 2, so it's kind of like, okay, there he is, and they kind of went into Resident Evil 3 with a new Jill, and it didn't seem like it. I don't know. I don't think that was the best choice necessarily, but Resident Evil 4, obviously Resident Evil 2 went into Resident Evil 4 very well, right? You had Ada, you had Leon, and I feel like that was a good choice. I think it's a good choice to kind of wrap Leon's story up. I think the ending of 4 kind of wraps him up a little bit without going into Resident Evil 6. But now, it hinted into Resident Evil 5, right? So you have Resident Evil 5 is basically the conclusion of multiple arcs. It's conclusion of Jill's arc. It's the conclusion of Chris's arc, for the most part. I mean, he's in the newer ones, but it's the conclusion of Wesker, which is a super important character, which they've already introduced as in the remake form, right? So, but they kind of did it as like a spoiler, like it's kind of like a teaser. So, Wesker is a teaser at the end of the 4th remake. So, I think what they need to do now is, a lot of people are saying, oh, it should be Code Veronica. Code Veronica deserves a remake, etc. Because they look at it like, well, Resident Evil 1 already got a remake, and they look at it like, well, Resident Evil 5 doesn't need a remake. It's too new. It doesn't really need one. And I'm kind of inclined to agree that Resident Evil 5 it doesn't need a remake as much as Resident Evil 1. And remember, Resident Evil 1 came out, the remake, for the GameCube at the same time, basically, that Resident Evil 4 came out. So it's almost 20 years old. So yeah, I think Resident Evil 1 or Code Veronica need the remake more. But I think if I had to choose, Resident Evil 1 is more important. We need to set up this new arc. We need to go back to the beginning and set up a new arc, right? One where you meet Chris for the first time, you meet Jill for the first time. These are important because they're going to end up being wrapped up if Capcom ever decides to do Resident Evil 5 remake. Also, Wesker. Wesker is introduced in Resident Evil 1. He plays a huge part in that game. He plays a pretty decent part in Code Veronica as well. So going to Code Veronica before 1, it feels like it's going to be hard. It would be harder to do 1 after that, because Code Veronica isn't a great place to introduce Chris or Wesker. You need 1 to be able to go into Code Veronica, in my opinion. So if you're going to have all these remade characters with these new personalities, I feel like 1's the place to start. Now, some of the best things about remaking 1 is because it's never been done in a over-the-shoulder perspective. 5 has been already done in a over-the-shoulder perspective, so it kind of, you can kind of go from Resident Evil 4 and Remake to Resident Evil 5 and not kind of feel like you're going back in time. But, and I know a lot of people love, you know, the what's it called, the tank controls and the you know, the background, the pre-rendered background. I know people love that, and I get it. Like, I'm nostalgic for certain things too. I played Resident Evil 1 as a kid, and it scared the shit out of me. And I played Code Veronica was my Resident Evil game when I had PS2, and I played the shit out of it. So I get it, but I personally do not feel like those fixed camera angles, I don't believe that those work in modern day. I don't think that they would be a huge hit with people that are trying to get into the franchise for the first time. And I know that's controversial. It's like, it's super controversial because people are like, no, they would love it, you know. For me, I don't quite love it. I never felt like fixed person. Like when I played Resident Evil 1 as a kid, it wasn't the fixed person that made me scared of the game. In fact, it kind of takes me out of the game. It feels like I'm watching from above, whereas I'm not inside the experience. I'm not actually getting attacked. I'm just watching my character get attacked. That's how I feel. I think mostly it is, you know, I feel like mostly it was scary because of the tension, you know, the absolute, like, resource management, the backtracking, the zombies that get up, that you thought you killed before. Like, that was why it was scary. It wasn't really the camera angle that served any scare. I know you can't see the zombie off screen. You don't know what's in the room when you enter. You can do that without having a fixed camera angle, right? You can create suspense in any angle, in any camera mode you want. I mean, first person, you can hear something around the corner, you know, and then you can turn the corner and there's nothing there, but you still hear it. You don't know where it's coming from. There's ways of doing that without needing a fixed camera angle. Same, you know, over the shoulder. So I do feel like they need to remake one of the fixed camera games first. They need to remake the most. They're really friggin' old. Resident Evil 1, I think, like I said, would be the best one. And I can just imagine, you know, the new Resident Evil engine now. I think that should they release Resident Evil 1, I know Resident Evil 9, I think is rumored to come out in 2025. Should they release Resident Evil 1 in, say, 2027? I kind of hope they have a new RE engine. I think, like, maybe this would be a opportunity to introduce the RE Engine 2, something like that, because of how momentous it will be to remake the original for a third time, right? And I think that they should also, definitely, they've done a few action now, they've done 3, they've done 4, they've done Village. All of these are kind of action-y. Village wasn't so much action, but there was a good amount in it. Definitely more than 7 or 2. So they've kind of gone action for like the last 3 games, and I think they've done a great job. I think they've done a much better job with the action and keeping some of the horror elements than they did back in, you know, the old days with 5 and 6 being action-oriented and not being scary at all. So, you know, I think they did a great job. However, I would love to go back to a traditional survival horror where you have an inventory, you have to choose what you want to bring when you go venturing out. You can't pick up everything. You might have to go back for something. That was what makes it scary, because you're like, oh man, I really do need this item, but I have a full inventory. I don't want to lose any of my resources. I'm going to have to come back later. And then you come back later and things are different, right? That's like the scariest thing. Like, the zombies have moved around. Maybe a zombie you thought you killed got up and wandered off. You know, maybe there's a liquor now that's spawned because maybe you completed some other objective, you know, and then you went back and now there's liquors where you didn't think there were. So I think that they need to bring that back, because that was, the item box doesn't have quite that same feel, right? Like, you're never like, I really should go back. You don't really care. You're like, no, just keep moving forward. We'll figure it out. We'll conserve ammo on the way. It doesn't really, it doesn't really force you to decide what you have to bring. You bring everything you have. So it's kind of like, it's not as tense, and I love that tension about Resident Evil. So RE1, I think they should definitely focus on the horror. It's supposed to be scary. It was scary originally. The remake was scary. This one needs to be scary. You need to have we need to have zombies, and we need to make them look friggin' horrible, right? I think they did a good job with RE2 zombies. I'm going to tell a funny story about RE2, actually. That was my first new Resident Evil game. I didn't play 7 until I played RE2 first. So I skipped 7 for a while. I was kind of on a multiplayer game stint at that time. And I was trying to get, I was trying to do more multiplayer things. But where was I? RE1, I think they really need to bring back that horror vibe, and I think they need to, they did a great job with RE2, but oh yeah, that's where I was. Resident Evil 2, I had my first experience with the newer Resident Evils was Resident Evil 2, and I did it in VR mode. I did it with a VR mod, and holy fuck, was that insane. Like, I remember just in that grocery store, like right at the beginning, and the music is like, it's like hurting my ears with how like grating it was, right? It was just like, so scary, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally in this, I feel like and this was my first VR game after Half-Life Alyx, so VR was still completely new to me, and I'm walking through this convenience store, and I kill a zombie, the first one. He rips the guy through it. I kill him, and I walk over to the key. I'm looking around like crazy, but I'm like kind of taking my time, because I'm like, I don't want to miss anything. I don't know. So I get the key and I hear, and he gets up again. I'm like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I got like 5 bullets, dude. So I shoot him again. I have no bullets now, basically. I'm unlocking the door. I don't know if he's gonna get up again. I have no idea how the mechanics work in this game. So I'm opening the door. I'm like, Jesus Christ, don't get up. I get the door open, and I see these. I'm looking through the window of this door in VR. Like, you can't even do that in the game, right? But I'm in the VR. I'm looking through this window of this door, and I see all these zombies in the store. And I'm like, and dude, and when those zombies were looking at me back then in VR, I was like, it felt like they were looking at me. Like, my brain, like, part of my brain's like, okay, it's not, it's obviously not real, right? But a subconscious part of your brain doesn't really understand that. You can't really assure your brain when this is a new thing for your brain. Like, when VR is new for your brain, that's why people get motion sickness, because there's a part of your brain that wants to believe that it's real, right? So it's like, these things are staring at you, not at Leon, like when you're playing the game. They're staring at you, and you're like, dude, this is fucked. And like, I'm running through there. I'm running past all these zombies. I got no bullets. I'm running past all these zombies, freaked out. First part of the game, like, I get to this police station eventually, and I'm going down that hallway with all the water, and the lights are blinking, and I pull the guy out. He's dead. He's like, he's cut in half. And then the zombie, I hear the door, boom, 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 boom. Like, oh, he's coming through the door, dude. Door busts open, and it's motherfucking Nosferatu. This guy is fucked. And he's got his little cop hat on. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm shooting him. I run out. I guy busts through the window. I just keep running. And I happen to look back because I'm just morbid curiosity. I go, what does this fucking zombie look like? Holy shit, is he fucked? He's like Nosferatu times 10, this one. This one's been dead a while, right? So I'm just like, oh my God, these zombies are so well done. And I'm just, I'm running through that police station. There's zombies all in the windows. I was freaked out. And, I went to bed that night. Like, it wasn't enough to make me stop playing, right? But I went to bed that night and I had dreams of zombies. Like, my brain thought that I was legitimately in a zombie apocalypse. Like, that's what my brain believed. Like, part of my brain. So fucking crazy and cool. And that always stuck with me. And that made me kind of like really appreciate. I'm like, oh man, they're actually doing stuff with the Resident Evil series again. I was like, oh my God. So anyway, I think they need to bring that to Resident Evil 1. They need to bring... I think they should release Resident Evil 1 VR, whether it be PSVR or whatever. I think they should have a PC port too, but a VR PC port too. But they should make it VR, because exploring that mansion in RE Engine 2 in VR would be incredible. Like, would be absolutely incredible. It would make people buy VR. I can guarantee you that would make people buy VR. I can guarantee you. People would want to do that. And I think they should. I know that there's a lot of people that don't want first person for Resident Evil ever again. Like, they've had their fill of it with 7 and 8. They don't want first person anymore. I think that's fine. I personally think that, maybe Code Veronica could be third person. But I think that RE1 should be first person, or at least have the option. So they already did Village third and first that you can switch between in the DLC. So I don't think it would be too much to ask for them to do the same thing with Resident Evil 1, right? Give us the option. And that would be the best option, because it would satisfy everyone except the fixed camera. Hell, maybe you can try to give them one too. I don't know. But yeah, I think that would be so cool if the zombies were really scary. It was first person. You're trapped in this mansion. You really feel trapped, right? Because you're in first. It would, I felt definitely trapped in the Baker house. I mean, it definitely felt like I was trapped in there when I was playing that game. And I didn't even play that game in VR. So it definitely felt like that was maybe more immersed, right? And it made those damn molded, as goofy as they are, it did make them scarier, right? When one's, towering over you, and you turn around and he's just, hovering over you, and you're in first person, that's scary, And that's why I think that even in this game, Resident Evil 4, the regenerator section, even though I thought the regenerators were much scarier looking than the molded, I don't think that I don't think that part was as scary, even though the model was scarier, the things that it did, the movements were scarier than the molded. I was more scared in Resident Evil 7 because you're first person. You're in it, right? You can't, juke and run and dot. You're just there, and you just have a gun, and you just move, and you just you're a normal guy, right? You're not a combo. You're not a combat veteran, right? So I just thought I think that would be the greatest thing ever. If it was just a scary first-person remake of Resident Evil 1, we can start anew, start all these arcs. Chris, Jill, Wesker, just start them all back up. For Jill, I guess it would be kind of like a prequel for her, because we've already kind of explored a little bit of her character and backstory in Resident Evil 3. But that's fine, You'll see a younger Jill, and I think that's absolutely fine. But this will give us a good opportunity. This will give Capcom a good opportunity to really kind of tease, the evolution of, say, Wesker, right? We'll be able to see Wesker. We'll be able to see him evil, but he'll be tame more. Like he's more in the first one. He's more like just kind of. He's not maniacal scientist like in 5. He's more like just, you know, trying, you know, to do small. He's more small scale, right? And I think that would give us a nice preview as to what they're going to actually do with him, rather than just, you know, blow their load on Resident Evil 5. Like, if they do that, then like you're going to get the craziest epilogue of all these characters. You're going to see Chris being like, you know, in the what's it called? God, how come I can't remember this now? The organization that was the bio, what is it? Oh my God. Not Blue Umbrella, it's the other one. The one where he's going in 8, where at the end he's going BSA something, headquarters, whatever. Those people, those guys. That organization that was set up to stop bioterrorism. He's like a big top guy in that organization. So he's obviously like, that's Chris in like his peak. That's his peak. When he's a STARS member, he's not as trained as he has been then. He's not a full-blown killer, you know, like in that one. And you know, I even think that they could, when Resident Evil 5, when they get to that point, hopefully after they do RE1 and then RE Code Veronica, once they get to 5, maybe they can add it. Maybe they can do co-op, right? Maybe we could see a co-op at that point. I wouldn't be opposed to it. And I'm sure I feel like they have to do it if they do an RE5. They feel like they're probably going to have to do a co-op. Like, they're going to piss off a lot of people if they go, oh, it's not co-op anymore. You know that's going to make people upset, right? But that's about all I have to say. I think RE1 should be the next one. And yeah, we'll see what they come up with. I'm excited for RE9. You know, once I start hearing news about RE9, once the trailer comes out, I'll be reacting to that and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, if you like Resident Evil, definitely stick here at this channel, subscribe, because I'll be doing a lot of playthroughs, commentary, you know, Easter eggs, lore, stuff like that. Love this series, so we'll see what happens. To me, it's the only AAA horror series that's worth playing. I don't know about these new, you know, if you like Silent Hill, I'll be doing the remake of that whenever that comes out. I hope that's good, but those were the only 2 real horror games I feel like had any really redeeming, I don't know, stories and gameplay to them. I think that a lot of horror games lately are just kind of, oh, Dead Space too. Dead Space was good. But yeah, so that's all I have to say today. Subscribe, comment. I'll see you guys later. Peace.